Hi there! I am so glad you found your way here today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Angela Pruce. I am a child and family therapist. I am the writer at the website Parents with Confidence, and I have 3 kids of my own, 2 of whom are strong-willed or spirited. And I help parents raising strong-willed kids find more confidence in their parenting and more connection and cooperation in their relationship with their child. So I am here today to talk to you about a dynamic that happens so frequently with families raising spirited, strong-willed kids, and that is the Groundhogs Day Dynamic. I think most of you have seen that movie. If you haven't, go rent it right away if you're too young or you just haven't seen it. It's a good movie, but essentially, the main character wakes up every day stuck in the same day, right? No matter what he does, it doesn't make a difference. Everything unfolds in the same way, and this is the same story day in and day out. So the reason that so many families raising strong-willed kids end up stuck in this dynamic is because we inadvertently kind of choose to do these certain things that land us here, that land us in this place where we feel stuck, we feel kind of helpless and hopeless, and we feel like everything is just going to start all over again tomorrow, right? So we wake up in the morning and right away you might be met with these behaviors of just oppositionality and defiance, and your child is arguing with you and resisting, simple everyday things, and then you're doing the things that you were told that you should do, right? So you're telling them that they're going to get grounded, you're taking away, privileges, you are raising your voice, you're giving them timeouts, you're doing the things that you're supposed to do, right? So you do these things, but nothing changes, right? The behaviors are still there. You end the day and you're feeling kind of just frustrated. You're feeling stuck. You feel guilty because you probably lost your cool throughout the day. And then you wake up in the morning and you wake up and your first thought is, here we go again, right? It's the same thing all over again. So this is such a common dynamic, and I want you to know that if you find yourself in this place, you are not alone and it is not your fault. I was in exactly this place for the first 4 years of my own parenting journey with my oldest daughter, and it's not your fault for reasons that we'll get into a little bit later, but it's absolutely not your fault. But these are 4 things we choose to do that land us in this place of Groundhog's Day, essentially, where it feels like there's nothing you can do. You don't have a lot of control and a lot of intentionality about how your family life and how your days are unfolding. You just kind of feel like a victim in survival mode, kind of moving throughout your day, right? So we get pulled into these 4 Groundhog's Day, let's call them traps. The first one is using parenting strategies on your strong-willed child that were used with you, or that your parents used, or that you were exposed to when you were a child. That is the first thing. And of course that makes sense, right? We live what we learn. We internalize those things that we experienced, and then they come up in our own subconscious, and that's just naturally what we do, right? The second thing is that we parent based on what others tell us to do. Instead, well, let's not get to the instead part yet, but we do what others tell us to do. So you may have had an experience where your child was engaging in a negative behavior or a challenging behavior. I should say all behavior serves a purpose, trying to get away from labeling it as a negative behavior, right? So your child is engaging in a challenging behavior, maybe in public, maybe in the grocery store, and you had somebody come up and say, oh, you just need to do X, Y, Z, right? You just need to spank them, and then they'll fall in line and they'll be able to listen to you. You just need them to fear you more so that you can gain authority and to make them respect you, or whatever it might be, right? That advice that comes in from very well-meaning, most of the time, very well-meaning people that are around us. The third thing is by doing the things, the strategies and the tools that what I would call popular parenting culture preaches, right? I would say that there's like this bucket of popular parenting tools, popular culture parenting tools. I would put timeouts in that bucket. I would put grounding. I would put taking things away, punishments, things like that, threats, bribes, all of that kind of stuff into that bucket. And the final thing that we do day in and day out, we choose to do without realizing that it is putting us in this Groundhog's Day trap, is reacting to our child's behaviors based on our own emotions. So we do these things. You wake up in the morning, you do these things that you're supposed to do, but nothing changes, right? You might notice that it doesn't seem to be helping. There's 4 things you can ask yourself if you are wondering, is this me? Like, I kind of feel like it might be. There's 4 questions that you can ask yourself. Well, first, let me mention a quote that I think is helpful from Albert Einstein that really speaks to this dynamic well, and I'm sure that you may have heard it. Let me know if you've heard it below in the comments, but essentially, I'm going to probably butcher the exact wording a little bit, but essentially the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different outcome, right? And we do this every day. We do this so frequently when it comes to raising our spirited, strong-willed kids. So the first question to ask yourself, if you're wondering, is this me? Am I stuck in this, in this dynamic, is, are you still having to use all of the tools all the time? Are you still having to use timeouts on a very consistent basis? Are you still having to take things away all the time? Are you still having to raise your voice? Are you yelling all the time? Are you having to threaten them every day in order to get them to be motivated, to propel them into action, to get out the door, or whatever it may be? If you are using these things all the time, good indication that they're not working. Those things aren't working, right? Because if they were working, then common sense logic would tell us that we would need to be using them less frequently, right? So the second thing to ask yourself is, are your child's challenging behaviors, like, shutting down, being defiant, not listening, are those behaviors decreasing noticeably? If these tools that you're using, if the approach that you're currently using is working, you would notice a decrease in these behaviors. But oftentimes it's the opposite. Oftentimes parents will tell me, and what I experienced myself, is that a lot of times what we try, doing what comes naturally, often makes their challenging behaviors increase. It drives up their resistance, and it drives up their need for control. And so they dig in and they become even more resistant, even more defiant. The next question is, does the tone of your household feel cooperative, or does it feel more combative, right? It should feel mostly, not all the time, right? We don't want this mindless drone that's going to go along and be obedient all the time, right? I know sometimes you do want that. When we're trying to get out the door, sometimes we very much do want that. But if we take a step back at the bigger picture, of course, we want a child that has a will and that can speak up and that will exert their opinions and out in the world and be able to speak up, right? So most of the time is a reasonable expectation. Let's look at like 75% as our starting goalpost. How about for that? Are they cooperative? Is there more of a cooperative energy 75% at least of the time? Or is it more combative? Does it feel like you're battling your child and you're stuck in a battle of wills with them for the majority of the time? And finally, do you end the day feeling grateful for this day you've had and this experience of raising a human, or do you feel kind of resentful and, why does it have to be so hard? Why is every day so hard? And I feel guilty, really. I feel like I messed up. I feel like I lost it on my child, because the way you're ending your day will give you a good indication of whether or not the approaches that you've been using have been working, or if you're just stuck in this dynamic doing the same thing over and over, even though it doesn't work. So if this is you, then it's time to step back and really ask yourself, why might this not be working, and what would be better? What things can I choose that would be more effective with my child? What should I be doing instead, right? So we have to stop doing these things over and over and over. It's crazy that this happens, because I think of something, just to give you an example to compare it to. If I was going to make chocolate chip cookies, and I'm not a big baker, but maybe like first day of school, often I feel compelled to make some fresh cookies for my kids. So I go online, I find this recipe for chocolate chip cookies, and I want chewy chocolate chip cookies because, I'm not like some total weirdo who likes crunchy chocolate chip cookies. If you are, I don't know if we can be friends, but I find a recipe for chewy chocolate chip cookies. They come out of the oven. These cookies are not chewy at all. They are super crunchy and hard. So am I going to put that recipe aside and not use it? Or am I going to pin it to my Pinterest board, make it again in a month, maybe try it again in a week, or even that same day? Try it again and see if I get a different outcome from the same approach. I'm going to do the same actions and yet expect that I'm going to get a chewy cookie this time, even though I can see with my own eyes and my own observational skills that that recipe did not work to achieve my desired outcome. Of course, I'm not going to do it again, right? But we do this with our parenting strategies. We do the thing over and over again, and even again in that same day. Like, we see it not working, but we just feel like we don't have other options. And again, it's not your fault if you're falling into these traps, because the thing is, sadly, we don't get the information we need to help raise our kids in general in emotionally healthy ways, in supportive ways. But we also don't get information, especially on how different the needs of different kids can be, right? On how kids have, it's very normal. Every child, every human comes into this world with a hardwired temperament and personality, and how, depending on your child's temperament and personality, their needs and the way you guide them and teach them is going to need to be very different if you still want to get the same positive result where they are open to your influence and you have a tone of calm and cooperation at home and you end the day feeling grateful, right? The tools you need are going to be different, and we don't give those to parents. We don't talk about how different kids can be, how different the parenting journey can be. We just went 2 days ago to pick up some new baby bunnies for our 10-year-old had a birthday, and we went to go meet the owners, and we sat in the parking lot with them. We met in a gas station parking lot, and we chatted with them for about an hour, and they handed us a 7 or so page packet of information all about these bunnies, right? I didn't know much about bunnies before then. I know a fair amount now. They wrote all about the needs of these bunnies, right? What are their emotional needs? What are their physical needs, right? Of course, how can we take care of them? What do we feed them? How can we keep them stimulated and help them to exercise? How can we help them have a good experience and have a good life, right? How can we help them be happy and healthy? We got so much information on these bunnies. Like, can we please get a packet of information on how to, in an emotionally healthy way, how to guide and teach and discipline, which is teaching, right? Discipline means to teach children, all types of children, in an effective way. Wouldn't that be great if we were given those tools and if our society was at a place where we could all be on the same page and valuing that and recognizing that this is something that parents need. So it's not your fault if you are falling into these traps. And I do see, to just end on a positive note, I do see lots of positive things when it comes to, more information, things, parenting approaches, raising confident, emotionally healthy kids being talked about more. I do see positive parenting classes now starting to be offered at our pediatrician's office and things like that. So hopefully this will become much more commonplace, and we can address the fact that rabbits, just like rabbits have different needs from our cats that we have at home, different kids and different personalities and temperaments have very different needs and things that they're going to respond to and react to very differently than a child with a different type of temperament. So let's move on to what we should do instead, right? So if you've been stuck in these 4 traps, this is what you can start to do instead to get the desired outcome, right? Which is, again, more cooperation and calm in your family life, a connection with your child, a strong connection with your child. where you're not battling them all the time, right? You do not want that. I know you do not want that. So what should you do instead? First, the first thing is stop using these 4 strategies that get us stuck in this Groundhogs Day dynamic. The problem with these strategies is that, again, they don't have anything to do with your child. They have to do with us. They have to do with our own emotional baggage. They have to do with our own internal emotional state that day, right? If we're getting triggered and reacting on our emotions, they have to do with maybe what others' opinions are, maybe how others were raised, but they don't have anything to do with your unique child and what you know and what you've learned works best to teach them and to guide them and help shape them, into the respectful, kind, cooperative, confident kids that you want to grow them into. We have to stop using, all of these other strategies. I'm here today to give you permission to stop doing the things, right? We keep doing the things even though they're not working. And I know it feels like you need to do something, right? In those moments when your child talks back, right? You get triggered. There's this little button in your parent brain that gets pushed and it tells you, stop this right now, or emergency, stop it now, or blank, right? Stop it now, or they'll be disrespectful forever. Stop it now, or you're going to raise a brat. Stop it now, or they'll think they can get away with this, right? Insert any response that whatever that internal dialogue is for you at that moment. Let me just tell you today, you have permission as you're learning to stop doing these unhelpful things that keep you stuck and that drive a wedge between you and your child. You have permission to not do anything in those moments. Of course, if it's a safety issue, if somebody's whacking somebody, clearly you need to do something and you need to intervene, in a calm, neutral way, which we'll get to in a second, but you don't need to do anything. It is not an emergency. So often, I'm telling you, tell me if you agree, I notice over and over again that the best thing I can do as a parent, especially for my spirited daughters, is to not react, is to do nothing at all. That is the best thing I can do, is to just regulate myself, do nothing at all in that moment. Because then all of a sudden this space opens up where we can be intentional about how we approach it. It's not an emergency. Everything will be okay. These aren't going to become ingrained habits just because you do not react right away right now and squash it because that's not working. And you then do things you don't want to do, you regret doing later. Stop. Don't do the thing. Don't grab the bucket of conventional parenting strategies that you see aren't working and are keeping you stuck. Don't do anything. Breathe. Just don't do anything. I'm giving you permission to do that. It'll feel weird. It'll feel uncomfortable. It might feel like you're being like a permissive parent. We don't want that either. But until you find that strong ground, that good foundation of being a calm, confident, firm, authoritative leader, without the emotional reactivity, it's okay to just not do anything in that moment. You are stopping, you are taking a moment, and then you can proceed with intention after that, right? So the second thing you can do is stop reacting, right? Stop reacting with your emotions and getting triggered depending on what what's currently on your mind, if you're having a rough day, if whatever the variable may be, and start responding instead. Stop reacting, start responding to what's happening for your child in that moment, right? Get curious about what is behind that behavior. Behavior does not come out of the blue and poof, there it is. There is something driving that behavior, right? That is the way humans work. There is either a skill, an underdeveloped skill that your child needs more support with, or a need that they have. We all have primary needs, secondary needs, these basic human needs, and whether they might be sleep, whether they might be food, whether your child, is going through a growth spurt, right? Maybe they are struggling with their self-control, because that happens when certain abilities are growing, when our thinking brain, your child's cortex is growing, they will struggle and they'll regress in those same areas. So getting curious about what's happening for your child and supporting them with those skills instead of reacting to them, right? Because when we react to them, we just totally miss the mark of actually giving them the skills they need to do the thing better next time, right? When we react, we clobber them usually with like a big lecture or a tirade or, raising our voice, whatever it might be, punishment. None of those things will help because they don't teach the skills. So the last thing you can do is stop being so rigid and controlling, right? Really we do it in the name of following through, being consistent, don't back down. You have to show them who's boss, right? This was my internal dialogue for years, right? You feel like I have to keep the upper hand. We have this, again, in this bucket of popular parenting culture. You got to keep the upper hand, right? This comes from like so far back, generations where there was a completely different cultural context. Things that it's not relevant to the way we parent today, and it's not relevant to your unique child, most of all. So we need to stop doing these same things and over again and forcing it, and instead looking to approaches and techniques and strategies that are proven, that we now have this beautiful access to in our world. There's lots of things that make our current culture, popular culture, challenging, of course, in our modern world. But one huge benefit is that we have so much information about how kids learn best, about how to raise emotionally healthy kids, about how to help teach them while keeping their confidence and their self-esteem intact. That is priceless. So we need to stop doing, the things over and over and over again that we know go against the grain of a strong-willed child's temperament, and start doing the things that we see and know from research do work. So again, if you are finding yourself stuck in these traps today, let me know in the comments, and please remember that it is not your fault. You were not given the knowledge and the tools that you need to raise a more complex child. So I know that some days you might feel like there's something wrong with you, that you are not maybe that you're a bad parent, that you have a bad kid. I have met a lot of parents of spirited, strong-willed kids. I know a lot of parents raising spirited, strong-willed kids, and I am one of those parents. And let me tell you, these are some of the hardest working parents that I have met. They are trying so hard and are so intentional, but just aren't seeing the results that they are working so hard to get, because the things they're trying are missing the mark and are keeping them stuck. So I hope even in some small way today, you can start to step out of Groundhogs Day and start to step into a more intentional day and a more intentional, family life and approach with your amazing strong-willed child. And remember that you are an amazing parent. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.